If you just take a look outside, every single tree, every blade of grass, really every flower you can see owes its entire existence to a tiny, humble ancestor that lived in the water billions of years ago. Today we are going to trace that incredible, world-altering story. This is the evolutionary journey of the Chlorophyta, the green algae. This is the lineage that basically terraformed our planet and painted our world green. So to really get this green lineage, we're going to go on a bit of a journey. We'll kick things off in their emerald's world, just to get a feel for their place on the planet. Then we're going to shrink way, way down to explore the cellular engine that actually powers them. We'll see this incredible variety of forms they've evolved, everything from single cells to complex seaweeds. And we'll dig into their really fascinating reproduction strategies. And then finally, we'll see how one branch of this family made maybe the single greatest leap in the history of life, from water to land, and in doing so, changed the face of our planet forever. All right, let's start in their world, the emerald world. In this first part, we're going to get a handle on what green algae really are, going way beyond just a simple description. We're going to define their place in the tree of life and start to understand why these seemingly simple little organisms are actually foundational pillars for almost every ecosystem on Earth. Just think about the last time you saw a pond or maybe a lake, and it was shimmering with this bright, vibrant green color. Well, the answer to what's causing that's the subject of our whole explainer today. It's an entire world of microscopic powerhouses. Okay, so the formal name for them is Chlorophyta, but really their resume is what's so impressive. Two things stand out above all else, and they're both absolutely monumental. First, they're the primary producers. They're at the very bottom of countless aquatic food webs, just turning sunlight into the energy that fuels entire ecosystems. And second, and this is critical, they are the direct ancestors of every single land plant on Earth. Every forest, every field, every garden, it all started right here. And their reach is just global. Seriously, you'll find them in the salt of the deep oceans, the mixed brackish waters of estuaries, and of course, the freshwater of rivers and lakes. But get this, they're not just in water. They live in damp soil and, remarkably, even on snow and ice in polar regions, creating these stunning patches of red or green snow. Their adaptability is just astounding. Okay, so to really understand how they pull all this off, we need to zoom in. Way in. We're shifting our scale from the whole ecosystem down to the single, fundamental unit that powers all green algae, the cell. This is where all the magic happens. So what we have here is a diagram of Chlamydomonas, a classic single-celled green algae. And it is a fantastic model for the whole group. Let's do a quick tour. Right in the center, you've got the nucleus, holding all the DNA, the genetic blueprint. The mitochondria are like the little power plants, generating ATP. For movement, it's got two whip-like flagella, which let it actively swim around. It even has this tiny red eye spot, or stigma, which is light-sensitive, helping it navigate towards light for the best photosynthesis. But what's really dominating the cell is that massive, cup-shaped chloroplast. That's the green photosynthetic engine room. So let's really zero in on what makes this cell so special. First, it uses chlorophylls A and B to capture sunlight. And this is a huge deal, because those are the exact same pigments that land plants use. It's a major clue to their shared ancestry. Now, inside that chloroplast, you'll often find a dense little structure called the pyrenoid. This isn't just a simple blob of starch. It's a protein-packed hub where the main enzyme for carbon fixation, rubisco, is concentrated. It makes photosynthesis incredibly efficient. And this whole setup is protected by a tough cell wall, giving it structure and defense. So now, let's explore how evolution took that basic cellular blueprint and just ran with it, creating an absolutely astonishing spectrum of different forms and structures, all from that one single, humble starting point. This slide really shows the power of that simple design. Just look at the variety. You've got single swimming cells like Chlamydomonas. You have these perfect little spheres of cooperating cells like Volvox. You have long filamentous chains with these beautiful spiral chloroplasts, that's Spirogyra. And you even get complex leafy seaweeds like Ulva, the sea lettuce, which for all the world looks like a plant. It's really a masterclass in evolutionary innovation. And we can actually map this explosion of diversity onto a kind of ladder of complexity. It all starts with that solitary unicellular form. One cell is one organism. The next step up is cooperation, forming colonies where cells live together, but they're still kind of independent. From there, evolution starts building these long chains, or filaments. This eventually leads to true multicellular forms, with actual tissue-like structures. And then you get the really weird ones, the siphonous algae, which are basically these giant, sprawling single cells with thousands of nuclei inside, all sharing one continuous membrane. And this is that first big leap in action. On the left, you've got a single Chlamydomonas cell, just living its own life. But on the right, you have Volvox. It's made of hundreds, maybe thousands of cells. And each one is pretty much a Chlamydomonas. But now they're working together. They're all held in this gelatinous ball, they're connected by little cytoplasmic strands, and they coordinate their flagella to swim as one unified organism. This is such a crucial stepping stone on the path to becoming a complex, multicellular life form. So we've seen what they look like, but how do they make the next generation? Let's dive into the equally diverse and, frankly, fascinating ways that green algae reproduce to keep their lineage going. Okay, so they have two major strategies in their playbook. Asexual reproduction, that's for the good times. It's fast, it's efficient, and it just makes clones to quickly take advantage of great conditions like plenty of light and nutrients. But when times get tough, let's say the pond is drying up or winter is on its way, they switch to sexual reproduction. This mixes up their genes, creating genetically diverse and tougher offspring that have a much better chance of surviving whatever hardship is coming. And our old friend Chlamydomonas is the perfect model to see this in action. This diagram shows both strategies. Over on the right is the fast lane. That's the asexual loop, where a cell just clones itself through mitosis, creating identical daughter cells. But when conditions get harsh, it switches to the pathway on the left, the sexual cycle, where two cells act like gametes, fuse, and create a tough, resilient zygote that's built to survive. So let's just walk through that sexual cycle step by step. It all starts when a normal haploid cell, that just means it has one set of chromosomes, gets stressed out. It transforms and starts producing gametes. These gametes, which we call plus and minus types, they find each other and fuse together. That's fertilization. This creates a diploid zygote, which now has two sets of chromosomes. This zygote then develops this tough armored wall, becoming a zygospore. It's like a tiny survival pod that can handle being dried out, frozen, you name it. Then, when conditions are good again, it undergoes meiosis, which is a special type of cell division that shuffles the genes and cuts the chromosome number back in half, releasing a brand new generation of genetically diverse haploid cells. But things get even more complex from here. Just like their body plans evolved from simple cells to these elaborate seaweeds, so did their reproductive strategies. And that led to some truly bizarre and, well, brilliant solutions for passing on their genes. And this is a fantastic example. You find it in a filamentous alga called Odogonium. In some species, which we call macrandrous, the male and female filaments look pretty much the same. But in others, the nanandrous ones, evolution came up with a really wild solution to the problem of finding a mate, the dwarf male. Just look at the nanandrous strategy on the right there. A tiny, mobile male spore finds a large female filament. But it doesn't just fertilize the egg. Instead, it attaches itself right onto the female and grows into a tiny, stunted dwarf male plant. Its one and only purpose is to produce sperm right next door to the egg. I mean, from an evolutionary perspective, this is genius. It minimizes the resources you have to spend on a big male body, and it guarantees the sperm is delivered exactly where it needs to go. It is an incredibly clever and efficient solution. And that brings us to what is really the pinnacle of algal complexity, chara, which you might know as stonewort. Just look at its structure. It's got a central axis with these whorls of branches, features that look almost exactly like stems and leaves. It has highly protected reproductive organs, with the female egg cell completely encased in a protective structure. It is so advanced that it gives us this clear, living glimpse of what the ancestor of all land plants must have looked like. You see, this complexity in algae like chara isn't just some interesting side note. It is the critical prelude to one of the most transformative events in the entire history of life on this planet, the conquest of the land. This phylogenetic tree, basically a family tree, lays out all the genetic evidence. If we trace the lineage from the ancient common ancestor of all green algae, we see different groups branching off over millions of years. But just follow this one branch here, the Chlorophyta, the group that includes our friend chara. That is the branch that makes the leap. The genetic data confirms it. It leads directly to every single land plant. They are their closest living relatives. So, what was the secret weapon that allowed this leap? Well, it comes down to one key innovation in how cells divide. Most algae, they just divide by pinching in the middle, creating what's called a cleavage furrow, kind of like pinching a balloon. But the charophytes evolved something totally new, the phragmoplast. Think of it as a microscopic construction crew of microtubules that assembles and builds a solid, rigid wall, a cell plate, right down the middle of the dividing cell. And this is an absolute game changer. You simply cannot build a stable, upright, three-dimensional plant that can defy gravity without being able to build rigid walls between your cells. And the evidence doesn't even stop with the phragmoplast. This table basically shows the smoking guns that seal the case. It's not just one thing, but a whole suite of shared, unique characteristics. They both build their cellulose walls with these identical rosette-shaped protein structures. They share unique enzymes that are found nowhere else. And even their sperm cells have a similar flagellated design. I mean, the case is closed. The connection is undeniable. So finally, let's zoom all the way back out and just appreciate the profound and ongoing impact these organisms have. Not just as ancient ancestors, but as active, vital players in shaping our green planet right now, today. This diagram reveals a really crucial part of the story. The journey to land wasn't a direct shot from the ocean. The specific lineage that would eventually give rise to plants, the streptophytes, they first conquered freshwater habitats. This was the critical training ground. The unique challenges of living in ponds and streams, like the constant risk of drying out, intense UV radiation, fluctuating nutrients, it forced the evolution of the very tools and biochemical pathways they would need for that final, monumental invasion of land. Their importance today is impossible to overstate. As primary producers, they are the foundation of the food web in countless lakes, rivers, and oceans. Through photosynthesis, they pump out a massive fraction of the oxygen we all breathe. And now we're learning to harness their power directly. In aquaculture, nutrient-rich species like Tetraselmis are grown as a kind of superfood for farmed fish and shellfish. And because many species are so good at producing oils, or lipids, they are a leading candidate for developing the next generation of clean, green biofuels. I mean, their story is just incredible. From a single photosynthesizing cell in an ancient ocean through billions of years of innovation to the entire terrestrial biosphere we see today, the journey of the green algae is, in so many ways, the story of our world. And as we now look to them for solutions to modern problems like food security and renewable energy, it really makes you wonder, what will the next evolutionary chapter be for this ancient and absolutely vital lineage?